Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for standing by, and welcome to ZLAB's third quarter 2025 financial results conference call. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. Later, we will conduct a question-and-answer session, and instructions will follow at the time. As a reminder, today's call is being recorded. It is now my pleasure to turn the floor over to Christine Chiu, Senior Vice President of Investor Relations. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Operator. Hello and welcome, everyone. Today's earnings call will be led by Dr. Samantha Du, ZLAB's founder, CEO, and chairperson. She'll be joined by Josh Smiley, President and Chief Operating Officer, Dr. Rafael Amado, President and Head of Global Research and Development, and Dr. Yajing Chen, Chief Financial Officer. As a reminder, during today's call, we'll be making certain forward-looking statements based on our current expectations. These statements are subject to numerous risks and uncertainties that may cause actual results to differ materially from what we expect due to a variety of factors, including those discussed in our SEC filings. We also refer to adjusted loss from operations, which is a non-GAAP financial measure. Please refer to our earnings release furnished with the SEC on November 6, 2025, for additional information on this non-GAAP financial measure. At this time, it is my pleasure to turn the call over to Dr. Samantha Du.
Thank you, Christine. Good morning and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Before we discuss the quarter, I want to take a moment to reflect on who we are, where we're headed. ZLAB was built on a clear vision to bring the best global innovation to patients in China and to discover and develop new innovations that can compete on the world stage. That vision remains unchanged. Today, our global pipeline is stepping to the forefront, becoming the next key chapter in Zai's growth story. ZL, or ZL-1310, has now entered the pivotal stage, less than 2 years from phase 1 IND, an extraordinary pace by any standard in our industry. And we're on the path for our first global approval by 2027 or early 2028. Beyond ZL, we're expanding our global portfolio with other highly differentiated programs, including our IL-13, IL-31 bispecific, atopic dermatitis, IL-12, PD-1 bispecific, and LRC15 ADC for solid tumors. More importantly, we have built a global R&D organization that combines speed, scientific rigor, and quality expected of a global biopharma. On our commercial business in China, we are commercially profitable today and on a steady, profitable growth path. However, the pace has been slower than we expected. The environment is complex and dynamic, but at the same time, there are encouraging signs of progress. Regulatory reviews are faster, and NRDL negotiations are more transparent. We have one of the strongest commercial teams in the industry, backed by a portfolio of differentiated, high-potential assets, and we remain confident in the long-term potential of this business. This next chapter will take focus and persistence, but we have the right science, the right team, and the right vision. Together, we are building a company that will make a lasting difference for patients and create long-term value for our shareholders. With that, I'll now hand the call over to Rafael, who will walk you through the progress of our R&D pipeline. Rafael?
Thank you, Samantha. I will begin with a few highlights from our global pipeline, starting with ZL-1310 or ZL. 2 weeks ago at the Triple Meeting Conference, we presented updated phase 1 data in previously treated extensive-stage small cell lung cancer. This global study enrolled 115 patients across the U.S., Europe, and China. At baseline, 90% of patients had received a PD-1 or PD-L1 therapy, nearly one-third had brain metastases, and several had progressed on a prior DLL3 targeted therapy, including tarlatamab, making this a very difficult to treat, heavily pretreated patient population. At the 1.6 milligrams per kilogram dose, we observed an overall response rate of 68% and a disease control rate of 94%, among the strongest efficacy signals reported in the second-line setting. Importantly, we also saw robust activity in patients with brain metastases, including an 80% overall response rate in lesions which had received no prior treatment of any kind, suggesting that ZLAB may offer a new way to control both systemic as well as intracranial disease without interrupting therapy, a potential game changer in terms of speed to treatment for these patients whose tumors tend to be growing very fast. Across all doses and lines, the median duration of response was 6.1 months, and the median progression-free survival was 5.4 months, which is highly encouraging for a monotherapy in this refractory population across doses and lines of therapy. Data from the 1.2 and 1.6 milligrams per kilogram cohorts continue to mature as enrollment continues and patients remain on treatment. ZLAB also continues to demonstrate a best-in-class safety profile. At the 1.6 milligrams per kilogram dose, grade 3 or higher treatment-related adverse events were observed in only 13% of patients, far below the 35 to 50% rates seen with other ADCs in this setting. There were no drug-related discontinuations or deaths, and only 2 grade 1 interstitial lung disease cases across both expansion doses of 1.2 and 1.6 milligrams per kilogram. This combination of deep efficacy and favorable tolerability positions ZLAB as an ideal candidate for the first-line combinations, where safety is paramount. We've now begun enrollment in a registrational phase 3 trial in extensive-stage small cell lung cancer with the potential for an accelerated approval submission. We're also advancing our first-line strategy with plans to initiate a phase 3 study next year following results of our ongoing combination study evaluating ZLAB plus PD-L1 with and without chemotherapy. In addition, we see significant opportunity for ZLAB as a backbone therapy in novel mechanism combinations. We plan to initiate studies with agents with orthogonal and complementary mechanisms of action, and we will share details once the studies are posted on clinicaltrials.gov. Beyond small cell lung cancer, ZLAB is being evaluated in neuroendocrine carcinomas, or NECs, which have poor prognosis and no targeted therapies despite high DLL3 expression. Early data with ZL-1310 are encouraging, and we plan to present results in the first half of next year and to move into a registrational study thereafter. Beyond ZLAB, our next wave of innovative global assets continue to advance rapidly. ZL-1503, our internally discovered IL-13/IL-31 bispecific antibody for atopic dermatitis, recently entered phase 1. Its dual mechanism targets both itch and inflammation, and its extended half-life offers potential for less frequent dosing. Its subcutaneous formulation is being developed. Preclinical results support its use in other inflammatory diseases. First-in-human data are expected in 2026. ZL-6201 is an internally discovered LRRC15 targeted antibody with a next-generation payload linker. It remains on track for a U.S. IND submission by year-end and a global phase 1 study initiation early next year for patients with cancer that have tumor cell or tumor stroma expressing this target. ZL-1222 is another internally discovered asset. It is a next-generation PD-1 IL-12 immunocytokine designed to deliver cytokine signaling directly into the tumor microenvironment while preserving PD-1 checkpoint blockade. IND-enabling work is underway, and we expect to move quickly towards an IND once data are available. Now turning to our key late-stage regional programs in immunology and neuroscience. Efgartigimod continues to expand across multiple autoimmune indications. The ADAPT serum study in seronegative gMG was positive, the first global phase 3 trial to show clinically meaningful improvements across all three gMG subtypes, MuSK+, LRP4+, and triple seronegative. 3 additional phase 3 readouts on ocular MG, myositis, and thyroid eye disease are expected next year, with China contributing to global enrollment. For povetacicept, our partner Vertex recently received FDA Breakthrough Therapy designation for IgAN. Enrollment of the global Rainier phase 3 is complete, with an interim analysis planned for the first half of 2026, where patients from China are included and potentially supporting an accelerated approval submission next year. The global pivotal phase 2/3 study in primary membranous nephropathy was initiated in October, and we're on track to enroll patients in China this quarter. Together, these achievements reflect the depth and quality of our pipeline, one that is advancing with speed and efficiency and with a clear focus on novel mechanisms and clinical differentiation. In summary, over the next 12 months, we expect to reach several important milestones across our global portfolio. For Zoci, we expect a catalyst-rich year, with updated intracranial data, first-line small cell lung cancer combination data, and results in neuroendocrine carcinoma in the first half. In parallel, we plan to initiate registrational studies in first-line small cell lung cancer and other neuroendocrine carcinomas, as well as starting studies with novel combinations across line of therapy. Beyond Zoci, we expect first-in-human data for ZL-1503 or IL-1331, and to advance ZL-6201 or LRRC15 into global phase 1 development. We're also progressing ZL-1222 or anti-PD-1 IL-12 agonist, and look forward to sharing additional data in the coming year. And with that, I'll hand it over to Josh.
Thank you, Rafael, and hello, everyone. Before we turn to our third quarter results, I'd like to start by welcoming Dr. Shan He as our new Chief Business Officer. Shan brings both deep scientific expertise and investment experience, and will play a central role in expanding our portfolio and unlocking value through partnerships and out-licensing. I'd also like to sincerely thank Jonathan Wang for his many contributions over the past decade in helping build the strong foundation that now supports our next phase of growth. Now turning to our commercial performance. Total revenues were $116 million, representing 14% growth year over year. Vyvgart and Vyvgart Hytrulo contributed $27.7 million, which includes a $2.4 million reduction following a voluntary price adjustment on Hytrulo to align with NRDL guidelines ahead of national pricing negotiations. While this adjustment affected reported sales, the underlying fundamentals of the launch remain very strong. Vyvgart continues to be one of the most successful immunology launches ever in China, ranking as the #1 innovative drug by sales among all new launches in the past 2 years. More importantly, the trends beneath the headline numbers point to durable long-term growth. There are 2 key growth drivers underpinning the trajectory of Vyvgart and gMG: patient demand and treatment duration, the latter of which is particularly important given the chronic nature of the disease. First, on demand. We continue to see steady new patient additions each month, with nearly 21,000 patients treated to date. Vyvgart penetration in gMG remains only around 12%, meaning we are still in the early stages of market development with significant room for expansion. Second, on treatment duration. The updated MG guidelines, published in July, have been a meaningful catalyst. They emphasize both the importance of rapid symptom control, where Vyvgart has demonstrated strong efficacy, and a minimum of 3 treatment cycles to reduce the risk of relapse and maintain durable disease control. Since publication, we have seen clear signs of positive impact in real-world practice. Physicians are becoming receptive to maintaining patients on therapy even after achieving symptom control, signaling a shift from episodic to maintenance use. As a result of our efforts, the average vials per patient have increased over 30% year to date versus last year, with a notable acceleration in Q3. And Vyvgart volumes have grown sequentially in the mid-teens. We see this level of growth as realistic and sustainable as we head into 2026. Now, admittedly, the pace of market build for this first-in-class therapy for a chronic disease has been more measured than we initially anticipated. With VYVGART, we are shaping this new market thoughtfully, focusing not only on driving adoption, but also on redefining how GMG is managed over the long term. Through physician education and real-world experience, we aim to change long-standing treatment patterns. While the ramp is slower than expected, the long-term potential of VYVGART in GMG is substantial. Beyond GMG, we're making progress in CIDP, expanding access across both supplemental and commercial health insurance plans. We will continue to add new layers of growth with new indications and formulations, with the most immediate being seronegative GMG and the prefilled syringe. Looking ahead, our next major launch opportunity is KarXT, currently under regulatory review. KarXT has the potential to redefine schizophrenia treatment in China, introducing the first new mechanism of action in more than 70 years. Notably, it has already been included in the China Schizophrenia Prevention and Treatment Guidelines 2025 edition, the first national guideline globally to do so, underscoring its strong differentiation and anticipated clinical impact. Across the company, we remain disciplined in our operations, scaling efficiently while investing strategically in commercial execution and pipeline innovation. And with that, I will now pass the call over to Yajing to take us through our financial results. Yajing?
Thank you, Josh. Now, I will review highlights from our third quarter 2025 financial results compared to the prior year period. Total revenue grew 14% year over year to $116.1 million in the third quarter, primarily driven by higher sales of NUZYRA, supported by increasing market coverage and penetration. Demand for XACDURO remains robust, and we aim to normalize supply by year-end. ZEJULA grew sequentially, but declined year over year amid evolving competitive dynamics within the PARP class. Given these trends, as well as VYVGART dynamics discussed earlier, we are updating our full-year total revenue guidance to at least $460 million. Our continued focus on financial discipline and efficiency was evident in our cost structure, with both R&D and SG&A as a percentage of revenue declining significantly year over year. R&D expenses for the third quarter decreased 27% year over year, mainly due to decrease in licensing fees in connection with upfront and milestone payments. SG&A expenses for the third quarter increased 4% year over year, mainly due to higher general selling expenses to support the growth of NUZYRA and VYVGART, partially offset by lower selling expenses for ZEJULA. As a result, loss from operations improved 28% in the third quarter to $48.8 million, and the adjusted loss from operations, which excludes certain non-cash items, depreciation, amortization, and share-based compensation, was $28 million in the third quarter, a 42% improvement from the prior year. While we expect meaningful quarter-over-quarter improvement in adjusted operating loss, we now expect profitability to shift beyond the fourth quarter, reflecting the lower revenue base this year. Importantly, our fundamentals remain strong. Our China business is already commercially profitable and growing, and we are executing strong financial discipline and investing strategically in R&D. We are on a path to profitability, and will provide updated 2026 financial guidance when we report our full-year 2025 earnings. ZLAB is at a major value inflection point, with a rapidly advancing global pipeline, a commercially profitable China business, and a path to profitability. We also maintain a strong financial foundation, ending the quarter with $817 million in cash, which provides us with the flexibility to invest in both innovation and disciplined execution. And with that, I would now like to turn the call back over to the operator to open up the line for questions. Operator.
Thank you. We will now begin the question and answer session. To ask a question, please press star 11 on your telephone and wait for your name to be announced. To withdraw your question, please press star 11 again. Please limit to 2 questions at a time. If you have follow-up questions, please request to rejoin. Please stand by while we compile the Q&A roster. We will now take our first question from the line of Jonathan Chang from Leerink Partners. Please go ahead.
Hi, guys. Thanks for taking the questions, and best wishes to Jonathan Wang. First question, on the revised revenue guidance, how should we be thinking about the key drivers for growth and the path to profitability? And then second question, on ZL-1503, can you help set expectations for the initial data readout expected in 2026? And how are you guys seeing the opportunity in atopic dermatitis? Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Hey, it's Josh Smiley. Good morning, everybody, and good evening. Thanks for the questions. I'll take the first one on revenue drivers, and then Raphael will talk about 1503. I think as we think about revenue headed into the fourth quarter here, drivers will continue to be VYVGART. We expect continued good sequential growth driven by new patient additions and continued growth in durability, or in terms of the number of doses patients get. We are seeing, as I mentioned in the opening remarks, we're seeing good progress as a result of the national guidelines that were issued in July, which focus on getting patients into at least 3 courses of therapy. So we'll see. We expect to see continued growth there. ZEJULA, we are seeing a return to growth. As we've mentioned throughout the year, the quarterly numbers I think will be a little bit choppy because of the generic entries for Lynparza, but we do expect VBP to kick in the fourth quarter here, and that gives us a chance to gain share in this class, and we're confident we will. So we'd expect to see some growth there. Rest of the portfolio continues to do well. We are excited about the progress we're seeing with XACDURO, but still face supply constraints. So we'll be somewhat limited as we come into the fourth quarter here there. But overall, good momentum in the portfolio and good growth drivers. We'll give more specific guidance for 2026 as we get into next year. But obviously, we're looking forward to the launch of KarXT, the potential approval of Tivdak, and continued growth in the core part of the portfolio. As it relates to profitability, again, our profitability will be driven by growth in the business in China. The China business, of course, is profitable today, and as we continue to drive top line growth, that profitability will be enough to cover the R&D and corporate costs that we have. So, we're still on that path. It's just we just need the growth to continue in the portfolio. With that, I'll turn it to Raphael to talk about 1503.
Thanks, Josh, and thanks, Jonathan. So 1503, we're really excited about this molecule. As you know, it's both dual IL-13/31 inhibitors. It traps IL-13, and we know that is a proven pathway. And 31 is a very potent pathway in initiating pruritus. So within the combination, plus the long half-life is going to translate into a really brisk effect, which is very fast and sustained. We have initiated the IND already. We plan to do a multi-country study. And obviously, it's a first-in-human study. We will do single ascending dose in normal volunteers, and then multiple doses in patients with atopic dermatitis. In the lab, we've been looking at other models of Th2 diseases, and we are very encouraged with what we're seeing on asthma, rhinitis, and other disorders that affect T helper 2. So in addition to this, we're going to be looking at efficacy endpoints. Given the half-life that is long, we think that we will be able to see effects on EASI scores as well as IGA-AD. And so this is going to be measured very frequently. We hope to have the data available by the middle of next year, but it will obviously accumulate throughout next year, and we will present when we have sufficient data. It's a placebo-controlled trial, so we'll be able to have comparisons, and obviously we know what the landmarks are here with other products. Again, a very large opportunity. This is a very common disease. Even a fraction percentage of capturing in AD would be a large opportunity. And also the possibility of expanding into other Th2 diseases, I think, make this a very promising product.
Thank you. We will now take our next question from the line of Anupam Rama from JP Morgan. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Joyce on for Anupam. Thanks for taking our question. The press release today really led with progress on your own internal global development programs. Is this a shift in how you're thinking about the resource allocation in terms of your prior focus on external BD versus now the internal pipeline? Thanks so much.
Thanks. It's Josh. I'll start. But first, we are very excited about the pipeline that we have today with the global emphasis, and of course that will be a priority to invest in. And Rafael outlined, our near-term focus in terms of 1310 and getting the registration trial up and running and expanding into first line and into neuroendocrine tumors. So that's going to be a focus. We've got a really exciting global portfolio behind that. We think we have the capacity here to fully invest in those programs. We have a strong balance sheet with plenty of cash to continue to pursue on a targeted basis the right kind of external opportunities to bring in both on a global and in regional basis. And we have the capacity within the income statement on the R&D side to, I think, fully invest behind these exciting opportunities and still manage, I think, an R&D budget that's within the range of what we've seen the last few years. So priorities are advance the pipeline, continue to build the pipeline, and continue to drive the commercial business in China, which is profitable today and will be increasingly profitable over time.
Thank you. We will now take our next question from the line of Yigal Nochomovitz from Citi. Please go ahead, Yigal.
Hi, this is Caroline on for Yigal. Thanks for taking our question. We were wondering where you're seeing the greatest opportunity and greatest likelihood for success for your internal global pipeline among LRRC and PD-1, IL-2, and others. And a second question, if okay. Thanks.
Rafael, jump in on this one, please.
Sure. Obviously, the most immediate one is 1310. It clearly is quite active. It is well tolerated. Very few related grade 3 and above treatment side effects. A strong brisk effect on brain metastases, even untreated brain metastases. And again, very high percent of patients responding. We are starting up the phase 3 study for second line. We've had recent discussions with FDA, and we're sharpening the design to the point that it's already started. We will continue to do some work on the dose, but I think that is going to finish pretty quickly. With regards to the rest of the products, obviously 1503, these are proven pathways, so the bar for activity is pretty low. And also the characteristics of the product with FC modification for long half-life makes it very ideal for patients with these chronic diseases. And then with regards to some of the other ones, LRRC15 is particularly interesting because it would be the first time where a tumor is being targeted where the target is not necessarily in the tumor. So there will be these two groups of patients, like sarcoma patients, where the tumor does express LRRC15, but others in which the tumor only expresses the target in fibroblasts. And if that is the case, if we can actually abrogate tumors where the tumor is negative, but the tumor microenvironment is positive, then it opens a whole host of tumor types. So pretty excited about this, and I think we are, with others leading in ADC, which is one of our focus in oncology. And then I'll finish with PD-1 IL-12. It's been very hard to target IL-12 because it's toxic. So we've been able to engineer an IL-12 stimulated moiety, which actually is attenuated, so it doesn't really cause side effects of T-cell activation, and at the same time with full blockade of PD-1. So in animal models, we can see that we can actually restore PD-1 resistant tumors, which would be pretty exciting to see. And we are seeing, as you know, more enhancements on PD-1 as a checkpoint with other molecules, and we think that adding IL-12 would be one of them. I'll just finish by saying that we can move these things pretty quickly. We'll have 2 INDs this year. One of them will enroll this year. The other one will start enrolling in January. And PD-1 IL-12 is a candidate that will have an IND next year, and hopefully the first patient as well in the second half. So we're excited about all of them, but obviously our strongest focus right now is making sure that we capitalize on 1310.
Got it. Thank you. And on my second question, we're wondering what you're doing to set yourself up for a strong KarXT launch, and what more have you learned about the schizophrenia market in China to best position KarXT in the marketplace? Thanks.
Thanks. It's Josh. Yeah, we're quite excited about the opportunity with KarXT. Regulatory reviews are going well, so we are hopeful for an approval sometime in the near term here. First, I think if you look in China, there's a huge opportunity. Of course, there haven't been any new mechanisms approved in severe mental illness or schizophrenia in more than 70 years. So the opportunity for a mechanism like KarXT that provides both efficacy on positive symptoms, negative symptoms, and cognition is I think, well anticipated, and thought leaders are anxious for this drug to come. So we'll launch with a targeted sales force. I think the difference in China versus what we see in some of the Western markets, certainly in the U.S., is it's a more concentrated approach. Patients tend to be in bigger institutions. So with a relatively targeted sales force and education program, we should be able to touch a significant portion of the market at launch. And again, just to remind people, the opportunity here is quite significant, with millions of patients today suffering from schizophrenia. Obviously, it's a lifelong disease. So we're anxious to get the approval first, to get up and running in 2026, and then move toward NRDL listing in 2027.
Thank you. Our next question comes from the line of Li Waksik from Cantor Fitzgerald. Please go ahead.
Hey, good morning, guys. Thanks for taking our questions. I have one commercial, one pipeline question. I guess just given some of the complex commercial dynamics in China and your revised guidance, can you provide your updated views on the $2 billion revenue target by 2028? And then second is for ZLAB. Sounds like you're expanding to neuroendocrine tumors next year. I wonder if you can just talk a little bit about the pathway to approval and what will be the bar.
Thanks, Lee. It's Josh. I think first on the $2 billion 2028 goal, we will look at all the moves that we've had in the portfolio, and we'll provide a more fulsome update, next year, maybe starting at JP Morgan. But to comment, we feel really good about the portfolio we have today. As Samantha mentioned up front, I think the most exciting piece is the opportunity for sales outside of China in 2028. We mentioned that 1310, we see a path for an approval as early as late 2027. So to have, some significant sales in 2028 coming from the U.S. in small cell lung cancers, I think quite exciting and certainly represents a new inflection point and phase of growth for us. The portfolio in China continues to grow, and we've talked about the dynamics with Vyvgart, which we expect over the course of the next number of years to continue to grow at a good and steady rate, supplemented by additional indications. Since we have talked about that revenue goal, we've added Povi and Veli, both of which can launch in the 2028 timeframe. So we're quite excited about the long-term growth potential of the portfolio, and most excited this year about the progress on 1310 and what it means for sales, not just in China but outside of China within this timeframe.
Yes, so
Rafael, you can jump in, please.
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. So I'll talk a bit about NEC. So the study that we have has two cohorts of carcinoma. So these are highly proliferative tumors that have a poor prognosis. One are gastroenteropancreatic tumors, or GEPs, and the others are other NECs that can arise from other sites, other organs. We are seeing responses in both groups. It's still early days, obviously, and we're accumulating more and more evidence of activity. These are patients that have had more than one line of therapy, which tends to be platinum-based therapy. And there really isn't any standard for these patients. The tumors tend to grow fast, and actually mortality is quite high. So in terms of how we want to proceed with this, the idea would be to circumscribe the tumors that have similar natural history, like GEP, large cell non-small cell lung cancer, and also tumors of unknown primary, and do a study, a single-arm trial, and try to characterize the response rate. I think anything above 30 to 40% would be of great interest, because there really isn't any therapy. Many of these patients go to clinical trials with reasonable durability. So we would plan to have discussions with regulatory authorities to see whether, given the unmet need, a single-arm trial with these kinds of results could result in an accelerated approval. The alternative is to do a physician choice comparator, which also we would be prepared to launch. And, given the activity that we are seeing, if it continues, it wouldn't be a very large study, particularly given the large unmet need and the fact that this is an orphan indication. So pretty excited about what the agency will see and opine once we have sufficient follow-up and sufficient patients to characterize the activity.
Thank you. As a reminder, before we take our next, it is *11 on your telephone keypad if you wish to ask a question. Our next question comes from the line of Ziyi Chen from Goldman Sachs. Please go ahead.
Thank you for taking my questions. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you, Josh. Two questions. The first one is regarding the guidance. We try to understand a bit more about, compared to the expectations set in any guidance previously, in which areas has the company encountered deeper than anticipated challenges, in China environments, particularly for, Vyvgart and Zejula. Could you elaborate a bit more? And also, I think beginning of the year in terms of the guidance, not only about the top line, but also you mentioned about fourth quarter cash break-even target. Is that still intact? That's my first one. Second is regarding the R&D, because ZLAB is really pivoting, towards a global R&D company. So in terms of the pipeline build-up, particularly for the early stage pipeline build-up, now we got oncology, ADCs. We have two different ADCs. We have PD-1/IL-12, and we also have immunology. So we try to understand a bit more about the strategy, the portfolio strategy, when you're deciding what to go after and what not to do. So could you provide a bit more color on that? Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Yi. First, on the performance this year, I would say relative to our initial expectations, VYVGART, while growing well, and we're pleased with the underlying dynamics, as we've mentioned throughout the call, it's just taking longer to get to the rate that of treatment that we see in the U.S. market, for example. So we're focused now on getting patients up to at least 3 cycles of treatment, and we're seeing progress there. It's just slow. So I would say that's our on the VYVGART piece, that's the piece that has been the slowest relative to our expectations. Again, I think this is what we're realizing is it's a long-term build the market opportunity. We have the long-term with this product, and we're seeing good response to things like the national guidelines and our continued promotional and educational efforts. So just a slower ramp to get to the kind of treatment duration that we see in the Western markets. On ZEJULA, we expect to gain share as a function of Lynparza going generic, and we saw some delays there in terms of relative to our initial expectations relative to VBP. Again, we expect that to kick in beginning in the fourth quarter and set us up well for next year. Certainly, again, there are dynamics related to affordability and hospital purchasing and otherwise that may make that a bit choppy. But I think the underlying opportunity for ZEJULA is to gain share from what had been Lynparza as it goes to generic. The third piece for us is then just XACDURO. We've talked about this through the year. It's a great product, and our partner Pfizer is seeing really great response and demand in a hospital setting for this drug. And we've had more supply constraints than we anticipated at the beginning of the year. We're working through those, and we're hopeful that as we come into 2026, those will be resolved, and we'll be able to fully meet the demand that we're seeing in the marketplace. Those things together, of course, will help and drive profitability. I think if you look at our path to profitability and focus on the non-cash, on the cash, sort of earnings, which is our non-GAAP number, you see continued good progress in that regard. And that progress should continue. We'll give you an update for 2026, but really it's just going to be a function of continued growth on the top line. And I think at the numbers that we're suggesting here for the fourth quarter, we probably won't quite get there, but we'll still show good improvement, and we'll be on that path as we head into 2026. Raphael, if you can talk about how we think about the portfolio and the next opportunities.
Sure. So the portfolio will continue to grow as a blend of both internal as well as external opportunities. I'm really proud of the fact that many of the products that are now in development came from our protein science laboratories, which have been very productive. But in terms of strategy in oncology, we will continue with antibody drug conjugates, and we will continue to innovate there. There are other antibodies that we haven't mentioned that are in the pipeline at the moment, and we spend a lot of time trying to characterize the antibody vis-a-vis the target and then use the right payload linker. So that's going to continue to grow. We also have an interest in immunocytokines, which I mentioned before. We have other immunocytokines that will come after the PD-1 IL-12. And then T-cell engagers, we've made an effort in T-cell engagers, and we will be reporting with time, some of these candidates entering the clinic. Outside of oncology, you're right. I mean, we have been focusing on autoimmunity, neuroscience, and immunology. In autoimmunity, we're focusing on cytokines, both antibodies or bispecifics, perhaps cell depletion as well, and then signal transduction of some of these cytokine pathways, which involve small molecules as well. And so overall, we will remain opportunistic, obviously, for either regional or global opportunities that have novel mechanisms of action, have differentiation, and really make a big difference for patients. But the guardrails, if you will, are the ones that I just described to you. So for the question.
Yeah, I think, Zhi, just like Raphael was saying, even though our pipeline in China, regional pipelines has oncology, autoimmune, and neuro, and anti-infectives. But for our global pipeline, we are focusing on oncology and autoimmune and anti-inflammatory specifically, like Raphael was saying. So internally for global development pipelines, we are only focused on those two areas.
Great, thank you. Our last question today comes from the line of Clara Dong from Jefferies. Please go ahead, Clara.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for taking our questions. This is Jenna for Clara. We have two questions, if we may. First, on VYVGART. I think previously we were under the impression that sales will be back half loaded. So I was just curious what kind of visibility or leading indicators you may have for Q4 and 2026. And more specifically, can you comment on, for example, pace, number of cycles on average patients are getting today? How does the pace look like over the next few years to reach the 3 average doses? And then our second question is on BEMA, and in the context of the Amgen announcement. Was just curious if it's still possible to have a path forward for just China based on the trials you're running or the data you have in hand. Thank you so much.
Thanks. I'll start with VYVGART, and then Raphael can talk about BEMA. I think on VYVGART, what we're seeing is good underlying growth in terms of duration or number of vials or cycles patients get. I think as we started the year, on average, we were probably close to 1 cycle per year or per patient per year, and that represented the fact that at launch we were getting lots of the acute patients, and VYVGART of course works really well in an acute setting, but to get the full benefit for patients with GMG that allows them to work and live their lives fully, you need to get the maintenance benefits which kick in at least 3 cycles. Through this year, we're seeing progress towards an average of 2 cycles per year, and as you mentioned in your question, the goal is to get to at least 3, and over time, aspirations toward 5, where we see the full benefits in clinical trial and real world setting. So I think as we look into next year, we'd expect the underlying growth to continue probably at this, what we're seeing in terms of volume, so sort of number of vials in total is sequential quarterly growth in the, sort of low teens. And I think that's reasonable to expect as we head into next year and continue to sort of climb towards that, on average, 3 cycles of use. Again, supplemented by or accelerated by the national guidelines that were issued in July and our efforts to educate physicians in that regard. So we're looking forward to the continued underlying growth here, and I think expect that to continue on a good basis as we head into 2026. Raphael, if you want to talk about BEMA.
Sure. So we're still digesting the data. You saw the data at ESMO that was presented with the primary analysis of 096 and then the final analysis with this attenuated treatment effect. And then Amgen announced that 098 was a negative study in terms of not meeting statistical significance. So we're looking at with Amgen, our partner, at translational markers and subgroups. And we will be doing this in the upcoming weeks and make a decision. But, our opinion is that it will be very challenging to get an approval in China with this data set. So as such, we're thinking about how to deploy these resources to the rich pipeline that we've been discussing today and try to capitalize on the fact that we will have this opportunity of time, people, resources, and effort to advance the current pipeline.
Thank you. We have come to the end of the question and answer session. Thank you all very much for your questions. I'll now turn the conference back to Dr. Samantha Du for her closing comments.
Thank you, operator. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us on the call today. We appreciate your support and look forward to updating you again after the fourth quarter of 2025. Operator, you may now disconnect this call.
Thank you for your participation in today's conference. This does conclude the program. You may now disconnect your lines.